Hello and welcome to Front Row Racing's FRR-idays Cup in Sochi in Russia. And someone's tried kicking me. I wonder who that was. That's clever. Try and kick the host. Anyway, right, we'll let the drivers get going and get them prepared for their attempts at Sochi. It could be a very, very interesting event for the FRR-idays drivers this evening. Could be also a very, very messy one. Now in the commentary booth with me this week, I have Front Row Racing RI. How are you this evening, Ray?
I'm fine, how's yourself?
I'm not. I'm just going to disconnect my computer from the internet. So, what are you expecting to see from the Fridays drivers this evening?
Possibly a lot of corner cuts, but
you could be right there.
A few new ones.
There is. Sorry, I cut you off a bit there. There is quite a few new drivers this week, which is good to see. The interest has been growing in Front Row Racing and in the FRR-idays events, which obviously the FRR-idays events is the feeder system into our F1 leagues. And basically, I mean, a few of the drivers have obviously they've been asking what it's all about and so on. I mean, one of the new drivers today that I suggested me on PSN, and I was saying, look, do us a favour, message the Front Row Racing Facebook page. You'll get the info from there. But anyway, we've got him in the session, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on. We have got a couple of the league drivers in as well, but we are pretty much going to ignore them because obviously the FRR-idays event is all about the new drivers. So in short, to try and explain it, it goes like this. People are interested in joining the Front Row Racing League. We've got two of them. World Championship on Wednesdays, which is no assists, and World Series on Thursdays, which is an assists allowed league. And obviously people show interest in joining the leagues. Now, there could have been many ways that Front Row Racing looked at allowing drivers to join, but from the experience we've had over the last few years of doing one-on-one trials with drivers, it never really benefited the league or the drivers. There's a lot of time spent doing the trials, and also trying to explain things to the driver. Whereas the way we do it at the moment is we put on a race, and the drivers who are interested in joining come and race and show us how they drive against other people, how they get on around the circuits, what their driving's like, what they're like when it comes to apexes of corners, exits of corners, and as Ray mentioned, possibly seen a few people cutting corners. And then obviously we commentate on it, and we can pick out bits that perhaps the drivers do that may need a comment of, right, if that was in a league event, it could incur a penalty, and so on. And it's a way that the drivers can watch the race back and then hear, okay, what I've done there, I need to work on. And it's worked really well this season because we've had a number of drivers who have come in and showed their talents without any issues of exceeding the track or the track limits, and been able to go onto reserves list, have reserve drives and show that they're worthy of it. Then there's been a few others that have struggled a little bit to begin with, but as the events have gone on, have improved, and have worked their way onto the reserve driver list. And that's how it works. And with the reserve drives, basically for the league drivers, if they know they can't make a race, they let the league know at least a day before the event, and then the option is there for them to pick one of the one of the reserve drivers. Oh, English boy's gone a little bit wide here. The league drivers get the opportunity to pick a reserve. If the reserve is chosen, that driver is then allowed to race, but all of the league rules apply to the event that they're involved in. So if that means they have to record their footage, they have to record their footage. If they don't, they could get disqualified. They have to respect the track limits, the leaving room on track, the pit entries and exits, everything basically. If they don't, then penalties could be applied. And Also, the reserve drivers don't score points for themselves when they do in a reserve drive. They score points for the team. And I know in the past some people have questioned that. Well, it works like this. It takes away that sort of thought of, right, I want to go and win this race and show everyone what I can do. The mentality instead is, right, I just want to get as many points as I can for the team. The opportunity to be a reserve in the future may come. And if you prove yourself as a reserve, if permanent places become available, they can be taken by the reserve drivers. Anyway, there's a quick run through of those. We've just been watching English Boy do his lap. He is a new driver. So for the most part, not too bad. And as I say, that takes a little bit too much curb on the penultimate corner. But he's going to put a lap time in of a 1:40.6. Anyone you're keeping an eye on there, Ray?
Yeah, I'm just watching Twist Loyalty from the track.
How's he getting on?
He's been getting on quite well. I've not seen him cut the corners yet. I'll do his lap time. He's at third place with a 1:40.0.
Okay, I'm riding on board with Acorn 95 at the moment. He's another new driver. Watched the events last week, showed interest in joining. So here he is taking part in this event, but it looks like he's backed out of his current flying lap. And also Mr. Beasley is a new driver. I think Mr. Beasley is a friend of Hindle's, so we'll see how he gets on as he completes Sector 1. Oh, excuse me. Now, if people are watching and are interested in joining the Front Row Racing Leagues, just do what these guys have done, which is find Front Row Racing on Facebook and send us a message. That's the way to do it. We'll then send you the information and you can come and take part in the next FRR-idays session. Mr. Beasley taking a little bit too much curb there at turn 10, I think it is, but it almost sounds like he did an ETL lift there. If he's done an ETL lift, I'd be surprised. Or either that or his mate Hindle has been telling him what you need to do. And it's quite interesting that as well, because obviously in the Front Row Racing Leagues there are rules regarding exceeding track limits. And a short version of it goes like this: don't cut any corners. If you want to know what is classed as a cut, at the edge of the track is white lines on the left hand side of the circuit here, the first white line, and on the right hand side of the circuit. You can put 2 wheels over that line and no problem. You put 4 wheels over that line, so effectively both your front wheels, you're doing an exceeding track limit, an ETL, whether that be on an apex, an entry to a corner, an apex, or an exit of a corner. Now, for some tracks, the Front Row Racing stewards may show a little bit of leniency, like turn 2 here. They allow you to use the exit curb, but not beyond it. So yeah, the basic rule is keep 2 wheels on the tarmac on the racetrack at all time. The curbs aren't part of the racetrack, they're next to the racetrack because they're on the left hand side or the right hand side of the white lines. Anyway, bit of boring bits over with. Apart from saying, obviously in the league races, if the drivers know this, if they do happen to cut a corner or extend an entry or an exit, there are ways of avoiding penalties. I won't go into those right now though. Okay, follow Mr. Beasley a little more. 34.4 Sector 1. So far not too bad through Sector 1, not quite trouble in the apex though of turn 10, but that's where sort of the drivers will be kind of like, they don't want to cut any corners, but at the same time that can induce fear of the apex. On board with Twist Royalty, who has been on the reserve driver list for the last 2 weeks. He has improved his driving a lot, and this is one of the things, you don't have to be super fast to get the opportunity to be a reserve driver. You just have to drive clean and drive fair. That's the main parameters of it. So obviously if you're cutting corners everywhere, then you're not going to get onto a reserve driver list, and you will be told on commentary, oh, too much curb, off the track, cut the corner. And the commentary team, me and Ray, we won't say it to give the driver any grief. It's so that they know when they watch the video back that what they've done needs work. Okay, Twist Royalty putting himself in 6th place. Is English Boy on an outlap? He is on an outlap. And Gonk entering the pits. Gonk is also a new driver. Nice to see him entering the pits correctly there. I mean, how would you describe what the drivers should do at the pits, Ray?
Well, get over to the right hand side quite early and try and slow down for that corner, because I've seen when we were doing the broadcast for World Championship that Dom didn't slow down, but when he went over that line he went and done the correct thing by going for an early lap.
Yep. So in essence, enter the pits correctly is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you don't enter the pits correct, yeah. And if you don't, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, a circuit like this. I mean, at Front Row Racing, we do put a steward's guide out. So it's what the stewards say, like what is a correct entry. All Millstars ran wide there. Almost sounded like he did an ETL lift. Yeah, the stewards put a video out for each of the circuits saying what's like how to enter the pits correctly, or what is a correct or incorrect pit entry, what to do at the corners, what to do if you do certain things to avoid penalties, which are very, very handy. So for any of the FRR-idays Cup drivers, when the stewards guides get put out on the Facebook page or on the YouTube channel, watch them, because then you'll know what the league drivers are having to work to, and you can do the same yourselves. You apply those things into the FRR-idays events, it will get noticed. The Millstar's not done too bad since his little off-track moment, although ran a little bit wide on the exit of turn 14 into 15 and 16, two horrible little corners, and then up close to the Tech Pro barrier, which sticks out into the road, which really is horrible. Into the final couple of corners. It's not going to be the fastest of lap times for him. 39.4 puts him in 8th place. Okay, Stringy B we've seen a few times in the past. I'm interested in watching English Boy on his current flying lap. Well, it looks like he's lagging about a little bit. Sector 1 of a 35.4, not the fastest. Ideally they'll be looking for high 33s, low 34s for a decent Sector 1 time. Let's see how he gets on through the tricky little chicane under the bridge. Around the off-camber corner of turn 14, and then the off-camber corner of turn 15, which just wants to send you out wide through 16, and nowhere near the Tech Pro barrier, which is good to see. Into the penultimate corners. This looks like it could also be in the 39s or even higher, so that Sector 1 has really cost him there. Okay, let's go and see who else we have on track. Mr. Beasley's on his way in.
95, he's coming to finish his lap. He's been a couple of questionable corners, but he's been quite fair, as I would say.
Fair enough, so it's a 38.3 for him. Now Konzo is a league driver, so we're going to be a bit rude and ignore him for the moment. We're on board with Ant69 at the moment as he starts his flying lap on a set of prime tyres. And for anyone that's interested in knowing, for the FRR-idays event, it is a 15-minute qualifying session and a 25% race. So both sets of compounds that are brought to this event will need to be used, unless obviously it is wet, and then if it does turn dry you only need to use the one. But Ant is on the prime tyres, definitely not the faster tyre, as his Sector 1 is probably about to show. Yeah, it's a 36.0, so 1.5 to 2 seconds down in Sector 1, but he did look fairly clean through there. See how he gets through kink of 6. Turn 7, oh yeah, way too much curb there from Ant, but he's lifted off, he's backed out of that one. Nicely done there, Ant. Good example of what to do. I mean, obviously in this particular broadcast view you won't get to see the exact details of an ETL lift, but in that situation there you can tell that Ant69 took way too much apex curb on the exit of the corner. He's lifted out of it, and that's the kind of thing that is good. That's the kind of thing that Front Row Racing would look for. He's done it again there, but obviously we have seen that he knows to do lifts. He's now wide in 14. He's probably listening to the broadcast as well, but there we go. He's doing the right things when he's going off the track. Okay, Hindle, also a league driver, but he retired earlier, so his car's just doing the laps at the moment. So I'm going to ride on board with Gonk, but I heard Ray's microphone click, so go on Ray, tell us what you're watching.
I watched Avcon for an hour lap. He used to do the tail lifts. He went second, but I would see tail lifts in there.
So was that with ETL lifts or no ETL lifts?
No ETL lifts.
No ETL lifts, yeah. So someone like Acorn, who is a very, very new driver, obviously we've not watched his lap on the broadcast here, but Ray's watched him and seen that on a few of his corners he's taken too much curb. But for Acorn, who is a new driver, probably isn't fully aware of the ETL lift. The way I can try and describe that, I mean, I've mentioned it a few times, is basically once you get back on track, you get back on the revs, you do a little off throttle, back on the throttle. It's perfectly clear and easy to see on your own rev counter. It's easy to hear as well. So if you're in one of the league races and you're seen to be off track, the stewards will want to have a look at that. You can then on your footage show that when you got back on the track, you did your lift and continued on. You avoid the penalty that way. If you don't do a lift, or you lift during the cut of a corner, the penalty is still going to apply. You have to do it once you're back on the track, back on the power, then lift. And that's why you'll see some of the drivers, they will cut a corner, but then afterwards they'll be off the throttle and then back on the power. Okay, so Gonk's finished his lap, only 11th, but we'll keep on board with him at the moment. Round turn 3, and getting nice and close to the edge of the track if he can. Not quite. I mean, I've had a few people messaging me over the last couple of weeks with wanting a bit of tips and advice, and it kind of made me think, you know what, I probably should have carried on with doing my track guides that I was doing on F1 2014, but for this season I had already pre-decided I wasn't going to be doing track guides because they are quite time consuming, and obviously a little bit too much curb for Gonk there, but again it sounded like he lifted off, which if he did, well done. If he didn't, lift off next time. Yeah, the time constraints, I've been too busy to really spend time doing the track guides, but one of the things that I have noticed, or one thing that I would say to a lot of drivers, is make sure you do use all of the road that you're allowed to use. So on entry to a corner, for example the corner we're approaching now, get the car all the way over to the right hand side of the road as far as you're allowed to take it, and then turn in for the corner. It'll allow you to take a greater speed through the corner. Not a bad lap apart from one possible cut from Gonk there, but as I said, did sound like a bit of a lift. Is he going to improve on his lap time? Nice line through final corner. I think he may have improved on his lap time, but not on his position. Millstar is on an out lap. Twist Royalty just starting a lap. Stringy B into the pit lane, and nicely shown for us there. Stringy B's entered the pit lane there, and some of you may think he's gone way off the track. It kind of goes like this. What the steward said for the pit entry here is the blue area, if drivers put two wheels into that blue area, they're okay to stay and enter the pits. If they get both of their front wheels into the blue area, so effectively all four wheels, they've got to continue on for another lap because they haven't entered the pits correctly. To be honest, they were very, very lenient on the steward's guide with the pit entry, which I wasn't overly sort of happy with. So the way I see it is you should enter the pits correctly regardless of the track or how tight the corners may be. But anyway, there we go. Right, let's see who else. Mr. Beasley, I know we rode on board with him a little earlier on, out of 14. So anyone you're spotting, Ray, as Mr. Beasley's backed out of his lap? Is he going for another one, or is he going for the pits? He's going for the pits. Temp Fear.
I was watching Millstar
Watching the...
I've just clicked onto him, so
okay.
I'll give you a wee update.
Okie doke. Looks like Temp Fear. Is he going for the pits? No, he's going for another lap, but he is on the prime tyre. Now, over the last couple of events, Temp Fear has been showing fairly good improvements in the FRR-idays events at Singapore. He was very, very good. So that got him the opportunity of a reserve drive in the World Series at Suzuka, which he took, and he drove very, very well at that event. Very, very well. Now, in about 20 seconds, we're going to be getting jumped to the broadcast view. There's something I will just quickly mention. In our current season, obviously we've just done round 15 around Russia, and obviously we've got round 16 coming up next week, circuit of the Americas. then round 17 at Mexico, round 18 at Brazil, round 19 at Abu Dhabi, and then we will be having a bit of a break from over the Christmas period. At the end of each season we do have a bit of a break, just to give the admins a bit of a rest, a bit of off time, and then we will probably start up a new season. Now, for the World Championship drivers this season, it wasn't a requirement at the start that they record their footage. We were giving them this season to learn how to do their recordings. But then partway through the season there was something brought to the admin's attention regarding the assist settings, so it did become a requirement for the drivers in World Championship to record their footage qualifying and the race and show their assist being off in qualifying at the very start of the session. So in the World Championship it is a requirement to record your whole event and supply that to the relevant page. But in the World Series it's not a requirement. Oh, a bit too much curb there from Temp Fear. Yeah, in the World Series it's not a entry requirement at the moment to record your full footage, although for the next season it will be a requirement of entry into the World Series that drivers record their whole session, qualifying and the race. Right, Ray, if you just want to waffle for a moment, because I need to go and grab myself a drink because I forgot to get my bottle of water.
Alright. Photo for as we're watching Don messing about. Come on, we're waiting, Don. I think that should be a quality ban for next race. Come on, Dom. As we're going, so there you can see the qualifying results. Over by Kink, he's a league driver, he's in first place. And we've got Acorn95 in second, Konzo, who is a league driver in third, Hybrid Nuke, a league driver in fourth, Temp Fear, I think he is a reserve driver in fifth, Mr Beasley, he's a new start in sixth, Stringy B's been with us for a while on seventh, and I think we have lost Twist Royalty because it says Felipe Massa 8th, Millstar 9th, he's a new boy, English Boy, he's a new boy, and I never seen him the last 1-2 seconds and I'll tell you. Gonk in 11th, he's a new boy, and Will Butler, he's been on and off with the racing.
He has. Okay, we'll get ready then for the start of the race, and as we do in the FRR-idays, we will focus mainly the newer drivers, because obviously we do want to give them, well, not give them the footage, but it's those that we're interested in watching to see whether they're going to be up to level to get onto the reserve driver lists. Now, one thing I would say as well is, obviously, for the FRR-idays drivers, it is sort of, this is their event to show what they can do. But at the same time, if there are league drivers in, this is an event where it's up to them to be driving properly, to be racing properly, because if they are on the broadcast and they seem to be off the track a lot, then it doesn't look good. And they'll get as much verbal abuse as any of the new drivers would, wouldn't they, Ray?
Yeah, sorry.
Yes, if you're going to put it on mute, you've got to remember to take it off mute. Okay, so we've got 4 lights, 5 lights. We'll let the drivers get headed down towards turn 1 and 2, and then we shall retire from the session. Something that I do hope that Codemasters... Oh, we've got Hindle facing the wrong way. Who is that that's hit him then? That's Temp Fear with a wheel missing. That's in turn 2. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Dom's in first place, Dom's in second, and he's got, I can't see, challenging him, that must be Konzo. Then we've got Stringy B going on hybrid. English Boy has had a lock up. Sorry.
It's alright. No, you're alright, you're doing well. It obviously gets very, very busy in the first sector of the race for these guys. But yeah, as you say, we've got Acorn 95 leading the race at the moment, with Mr. Beasley in third place. Now, I didn't get to see if anything happened up at turn 2 because I was focusing on the two cars that seemed to crash massively at turn 1 at the kink. So I don't know if someone was getting a bit too brave or too aggressive there, but obviously Temp Fear's now out of this event with wheels missing, and I'm sure he will let us know what happened there. Oh, we've got a Ferrari going deep and another Ferrari going deep. That's English Boy and Stringy both getting it a bit wrong, but that's a situation where English Boy did go very, very deep. It ghosted him because it did so, and I know that in the rules, because it's obviously something that was discussed before the start of the season, if a driver goes for an overtake in the way that English Boy did there, so deep, he was way too fast into that corner, and it ghosts him through another car and he completes the overtake, it is effectively an illegal overtake, because the only reason they've got past is because it's ghosted him. Had it not ghosted him, he would have written off the car ahead, and that's why it'd get put down as an illegal overtake.
Star went too wide in turn 2. He's battling with Conzo. He went too wide and kept the place.
Now Conzo's gone for the option tyres here, but I think
English Boy's catching up on him.
He is.
Side by side into the corner.
Millstar's on the prime tyres and Conzo's on the options, and Conzo can't get past at the moment. Millstar looking at going a little bit defensive, but that's allowing English Boy and Stringy B to catch up. Oh, English Boy, a little bit too tight there, and that's let Stringy B sneak through up the inside. Oh, and English Boy's gone too deep. He's hit the back of the other Ferrari. He's now got a damaged front wing. He's going to end up into the pits. This is where, as a new driver, you kind of want to try and keep yourself out of trouble, and if he goes for an overtake down here, he's going to find out he's going to go straight on. There you go, he's going straight on. There's contact. I'm not surprised. Oh, we got Millstar upside down into the barrier. Oh my goodness me. Oh, a huge, huge, huge crash there. I've never seen it where a car has ended up upside down into the barrier. Almost, it's like an upside down version of the crash with Carlos Sainz had, but he wasn't hit into there. Oh dearie, dearie me.
Acorn's still up in front.
I tell you what, Ray, you ride on board with Acorn for a while and just obviously keep a lookout for how he's doing with track limits and so on. We'll have a little bit look further down the grid. Now, Stringy B's a driver. I was about to say something and it's ended up being off track a little bit. You've got Stringy B and Will Butler, and I think with Conzo behind them. Stringy B's a driver who has improved recently, a little bit too wide on entry there, and Will Butler's a little bit too wide on exit. But yeah, Stringy has improved, but I mean, the first laps here have been so hectic. I'm not surprised we've ended up with a big, huge crash. But that's one of those situations where, for English Boy, he kind of needed to realise that his front wing was gone and kind of try and keep out of trouble in that one, because what it looked like happened was he's gone steaming down towards the end of the DRS zone, gone to turn around the kink, it hasn't turned, he's drifted wide into another car. That's ended up in a huge collision and effectively 2 cars out of the race pretty much. Okay, Will Butler at the moment trying to attack Stringy B into that particular section of the track. Will Butler's up the inside, realises he can't get it done, takes too much curb, and looks like he may have backed out of it, but that has allowed him to get close for the next corners and got Conzo right behind them. So this is where, for Conzo as a league driver, it'd be advisable just to steer clear of these two at the moment, because chances are going to end up in a crash, as well as a diving look up the inside. Not quite to be done. So Ray, we've had about a lap of you watching up at the front there. What can you tell us from there?
He's been quite good, he's been keeping it quite clean. He's not done any corner cuts that I've seen, and he's keeping it within the rules. Something else I'm just seeing. Hindle, was he not in that first corner collision? Did he not lose a wheel?
he didn't lose a wheel. He was in the first corner collision, but didn't lose a wheel. It was Temp Fear that lost a wheel. But yeah, Hindle was involved. He was spinning. I just happened to go on board with him, and next thing I know, I'm getting dizzy and feeling a bit seasick. We could see Temp Fear parked up at the side of the track missing a wheel. Now, on board with Will Butler at the moment, under a bit of an attack by Conzo, but both of them taking a little bit too much curb at the moment. This is where for Will, yes, he's got a car behind him, but if he just focuses on keeping the car on the track, if he gets overtaken, he gets overtaken by one of the league drivers, but he won't have the league driver behind him saying, oh, too much curb, too much curb, too much curb, because the temptation then is for the league driver to do exactly the same thing. Oh, Conzo's going deep, going very, very deep, but again Will Butler takes too much curb, and then to be honest looks like he almost took too much apex as well. I've got a Williams ahead of them, so I think Hybrid Nuke may have had a bit of an incident because they weren't this close earlier. Stringy B and Hybrid Nuke near each other, but if you, Ray, want to keep an eye on Mr. Beasley, who was up near the front, and see how he's getting on, I will go and pick another driver to go and watch. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure you'll find that one out for us, because I'm looking at Ant69 at the moment, who's got a sort of a distant view of the battle that's going on ahead, and I think Lotus there, Will Butler may have just taken way too much exit curb of turn 2 and backs out of it. Now, Ant69, I know when he joined his first FRR-idays session, he was saying that he'd not really been playing on F1 much lately. So for him, he's kind of got to get back into the groove of playing the game again. And as other people have said, get away from that habit of like random lobbies or lobbies with your mates where you don't give a crap about track limits. Because that is one of the main things that drivers have to realise, that when they go from just random fun races in the lobbies or whatever, or with their mates, to racing in a league, you do have to try and you've got to be racing fairly, you've got to be racing properly and keeping it within the track limits. Now, Hindle is down in 10th place and Overdyking is down in 9th place. Now, I know we couldn't ride on board with Hindle in the World Series race yesterday, so let's ride on board with him for a bit now, shall we? I mean, you were watching Hindle yesterday, Ray, and unfortunately had a little bit of a technical issue with the recording that you was doing on the co-commentary, because obviously we discussed before the event of... and obviously people don't know this, but we did discuss beforehand with you being in on co-commentary, saying, right, for example, with Hindle, we've struggled to watch him on occasion, so you keep an eye on him, just in case we can't view him. And you did keep an eye on him, so what would you say you saw from his event? And be honest as well.
What I saw was a few corner cuts. I didn't see the lifts to go with it, and I put his fastest lap time on it. I had technical issues, but I would have passed my footage to the race directors, and it's up to them if they would like to take it on board.
I mean, that's the thing, for someone like Hindle who is quick. I mean, if I was Hindle, I would be recording all of my footage on the PS4, either by double tapping share to record the clips, or potentially by live streaming it onto YouTube, onto Twitch, or onto Ustream, although Ustream's not particularly very good. And then if there is an event where like the broadcast can't view them, they can at least share their footage and go, well, look, yes, I've been off track a few times, but I've done ETL lifts. And that's the whole point of like what the race directors do. They put a post out which says, right, on the broadcast view, this is all of the off-track moments that we've seen people have. And then like in the World Championship, we'll supply our footage to the race directors. They can check through it, and if you've done your ETL lifts, you're fine. And that's something that the World Series drivers are going to have to get used to a degree, because obviously for next season in the World Series, it is going to drivers to record all of their race, qualifying and the race. And that's one of the reasons for it. There is a few others, but more announcements will be made at a later stage. Ant69 seems to be going a bit slow at the moment. I don't know if he's had a bit of an issue somewhere, but him and the car ahead, Will Butler, they did seem to be going quite slow, and they were further up the field at the moment. Not at the moment, they were further up the field, but now they're not. Now, Will Butler has got the prime tyres on, so probably recently made a change, and as we've seen from the league races this week, the prime tyres around here, they're not that nice. They're not very nice at all. They struggle to kind of get up to temperature and struggle for a bit of grip, really. And the temptation around here is to run very, very low aeros, which can be done as long as you've got the mechanical grip there to do so. Now, I am seeing Will take way too much curb on a few of these corners, so Will, if you watch this back, you really need to work on keeping the car on the road on the apexes of the corners. Okay, let's see who else we can go and find. Acorn 95 is in the pits now to get rid of his option tyres. Bolt on a set of primes and away he goes. Conzo's in second place, struggling a little bit with the pit entry there as he's about to get rid of his option tyres. Mr. Beasley though, running prime tyres, is continuing on around the final corner. So, is it going to be close at all between Acorn and Beasley? Sorry, Ray, go on.
Mr. Beasley's had a couple of going wide past the limits that the stewards had said, and I think one corner cut, but he's been doing pretty well, and if he watches us back, just do your ETL lifts, and that would avoid your penalty, and there should be no abusive of them.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I will mention, obviously. On the broadcast view, or even if the co-commentator, like Ray, for example, is watching, has watched a few drivers, as Acorn does take a little bit too much apex curb there. Ray sat there at the moment as a co-commentator, keeping an eye out on a lot of these FRR-idays drivers, just to see how they're getting on, how they're doing with their corners, and depending on which view Ray may be using, he may be able to tell if drivers are doing ETL lifts or not. Now, when it comes to the league racers, that particular view, if a co-commentator, for example, is watching a driver and they're cutting corners all over the place, then obviously it's not good. But even if on the co-commentator's view there's possible lifts, that can't be used as evidence of avoiding a penalty. That's where it's down to the driver's own footage, because it will show the rev counter. It will show clearly that rev counter dipping in the throttle application. So anyway, Acorn 95 continuing on then to start lap 9. Now, when he exited the pits and headed up to turn 2 here, it looked like he may have gone a little bit wide on the exit of turn 2, but was pretty much on the limits, and is much nicer through there on this occasion. So you mentioned Mr. Beasley, so I'll watch him for a moment. He's got Over Dyking behind him. So under a little bit of pressure, and Dom's probably on the option tyres at this moment in time, so I think he did qualify on the primes. So for Mr. Beasley, he's going to come up under a little bit of a pressure, and he's going defensive already, but all he needs to focus on is keeping the car on the road, because that at the end of the day is what we're looking for. So Ray, 9 laps into the race, or as Dom looked like he ran a little bit wide on entry there, is there any of the new drivers that so far have stood out a little bit for you?
I'd say the leader has, he's not hit, from what I've seen, not many ETLs, one or something, and I'm trying to remember Ronnie Carrier, one he had, I seen him, maybe he went wide, but he's trying to keep it in within the rules as far as I've seen, and his pit entry was spot on. I watched his pit entry.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously something that I like to see. Pit entries I am a bit of a stickler for, but it's one of those things where I personally just feel that pit entries should be entered correctly. There's a reason why the pit lane line starts where it does, and obviously for any new drivers that are watching this, or any spectators that are watching, when it comes to the pit entry, right, a lot of people tend to think the pit entry begins where the pit wall begins, or where a curb begins. And the pit lane ends as soon as you can get back on the track. Well, it's not the case. The pit lane begins where the white line begins that's in the middle of the track, showing, hey, go over here, this is where the pit lane is. That point is the start of the pit entry. As Stringy B goes a little bit wide on entry into turn 4. And obviously wide on entry into corners would be classed as an ETL, so drivers do need to make sure that they're not going wide on entry into corner. So this corner here, turn 7, if they were up against the wall there, it would be classed as an ETL. But it does look like Stringy is trying to improve on his driving. He has been working on it a lot over the last few weeks, which is really good to see. Okay, Will Butler, we've watched him a few times, and most times we've watched him, he's been off track a little bit, so let's see if he's been improving. I mean, one of the things the drivers will find is on these prime tyres, there's not a lot of grip. There really isn't. But, for example, a driver saying, oh, well, I cut that corner because I turned in more because my tyres are worn, or I messed up my pit entry because my tyres are worn, or I didn't have any grip, so that's why I've gone wide. None of them are really, like here for example, that's a little bit too wide in a league race from Will Butler. But if he was to say, well, I didn't do an ETO lift because I've got no grip in my tyres, and that cut there, he's hit the wall and he's spun. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Now unfortunately I can't ride on board with Gonk at the moment, which is a bit of a shame. We'll see if Ant is anywhere near him. No, he's not. Right, so back to what I was saying a moment ago. Which was where I've completely forgot. Oh, that's right, yeah. Okay, your tyres are worn, you haven't got the grip, blah, 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 blah. It's not a valid excuse. If you haven't got the grip, you need to go slower. Okay. Yeah, so if you approach a pit lane, you hit the brakes and you lock up and you go straight past the pits, or you go round the penultimate corner and turn in because it's the faster way, and cut the pit lane, there's not a valid excuse. You should be going slower. If your car hasn't got the grip, or your tyres haven't got the grip to stay on the road, you need to be going slower. You've got to drive to the grip levels that you've got. Anyway, Mr. Beasley then down to 4th place now on his prime tyres. From the bits that we've watched of Acorn 95 and Mr. Beasley, both been doing fairly well. So yeah, interesting one. I mean, Temp Fear, he's not going to be happy that he ended up being crashed out early on. Hindle's retired from the event as well after that early collision. He's probably sat there now watching, seeing how other drivers are getting on. With a couple of laps to go, Acorn 95 on his prime tyres is being caught by cars on their option tyres. So you've got Overdiking and Hybrid Nuke. Yeah, Hybrid is on the option tyres as well. Is Mr. Beasley being caught by Konzo? I don't think he is, because Konzo is also on the prime tyre at the moment. There he is in the background. Oh, Mr. Beasley was very close to the wall there around turn 1, but that's not really a corner you can cut because you'll hit the wall before you're off the track. Let's go and have a look at Stringy B down in 6th place. Bit of a gap, 16 seconds from the leader at the moment. But this is one of those circuits where, I mean, when this track came onto the calendar, I think pretty much every one of our league drivers went for a drive round it, and it was like, oh my god, oh, Stringy's way too wide on entry into turn 4 there. That's something that you really need to work on. The white lines do dictate the edge of the track. You need to be keeping 2 wheels within it. Yeah, I mean, first time people drove around this track, it was just clear you could cut corners a ridiculous amount around this circuit, and Mexico is a similar one. And I must admit, I reckon the race directors and the stewards are going to be having a lot to look at from Mexico. So anyway, down to nearly enough 1 lap remaining, and Stringy does look like he's struggling on these tyres, but that's where he just needs to back it off a little and try and keep it on the road. I think Will Butler may have pitted again because he was on prime tyres. He's now on the option, so I think he's gone for another pit stop for the last couple of laps. But Ant is still going on his prime tyres and they're struggling a bit. It could have been damage. He did have the spin, but I think if I was him, I probably would have pitted at the end, perhaps see what the option tyres are like. But we're looking at Acorn 95 now on the final lap. He is being closed in by 2nd and 3rd place, but Hybrid Nuke is applying the pressure to Overdyking at the moment, so Acorn 95 may just get away with this one if he can avoid being in DRS range. Nice entry into turn 4 there, keeps it within the limits just about on the exit. Go on, Ray.
It'd be good if the league drivers could keep hitting the limits.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, this is the thing, it's easy for league drivers to see other drivers perhaps extending the track, cutting corners and do exactly the same thing, but really the league drivers, if they are in the FRR-idays events, as Overdyking's just cut a corner there, they really should be sort of showing these guys how it should be done without any cuts, without any running wide. I mean, okay, they may be pushing, but at the same time it's their opportunity to show the guys how it should be done, not how to be off the track. Okay, Acorn 95 is under pressure. If he can just keep it together for the last 4 corners, he's going to be alright. Hybrid Nuke is still trying to pressure Dom at the moment. So if Acorn gets a good exit here, he could be okay, although it looks like he's ran a little bit wide. That's slowed him down a bit. Goes defensive. Nice to see. Covers off. It just needs to carry the speed through the final corners, perhaps a little bit wide, and Overdyking chucks it up the inside where there was no space to go and loses out on second place. Konzo finishing on his prime tyres down in 5th place. And Konzo, I mean, he's on course for taking the World Series title this season, which will be an interesting one for him. I know he's interested in trying to move up to the World Championship, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. Oh, and now I can ride on board with Gonk, so apologies Gonk, you've not been on the video much, but sometimes that's the way it goes. So hopefully you've been keeping it within the track limits, and if you have or haven't, you'll at least be able to watch what other people are doing and what we've commented about them. So, a few drivers struggling with the circuit here, but we expect that in the FRR-idays Cup. We expect drivers to be taking too much corner at times, but this is why we do the commentary in here the way that we do, because then they get to know that whatever they're doing would need working on for future events. Okay, so Ant's going to come around the final corner for the final time to take 9th place. Interesting session there. I tell you, I was quite impressed with how Acorn has done in that event there, Ray. Very impressed with how he's done there. Turn your mute off, Mike. Turn your mute off, Ray. Sat there talking, he's got mute on. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. But there we go.
I think in qualifying I've got in my notes ETL, so I think in qualifying he had a couple of ETLs and in race, but if he is the ETLers, if he doesn't know about them, if he watches videos and sort that out.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing for these drivers. I mean, obviously if you're quick in the FRR-idays events, you instantly get on the radar of the league admins, the league drivers and all that kind of stuff. And if someone comes along and is suddenly is really quick, I think history tells us that a lot of drivers will sit there and ask, okay, are they doing it fairly? Because at the end of the day, if someone comes along and they're quick and they're keeping the car on the road, you just can't complain, you can't argue, you just have to say, well done, yeah, he's fast or she's fast. But obviously for the league drivers, if people come along and they're really quick but they're off the track a lot, it gets frustrating for the league drivers in those situations, because they'll be sat there and it's like, well, you can't compete against someone that's doing that. But that's why in the league events that we do, penalties do get applied for being off track without doing any ETL lifts, and that's why in the league races in the World Championship they have to record their footage anyway so they can get checked off for any off track moments. But in the World Series, if they haven't got any footage, the penalties are going to be applied. If they have got footage that shows them doing ETL lifts, no penalties will be applied, so they'll be alright on that one. So yeah, I mean, I would say to all of the FRR-idays drivers, keep an eye out on the Front Row Racing YouTube channel for the Front Row Racing Stewards Guides. All right, watch them. On a few of them, I have edited in what the drivers or what like the stewards or look what the drivers do and what it shows on their rev counter. But yeah, keep an eye out for the stewards guides because you will find them very, very useful. And obviously, if we can see either on the broadcast view or the co-commentators view, can see that a driver is perhaps cutting a corner but is also doing an ETL lift, we can tell then that that driver has either got a friend that's helping them along or that they have been watching the stewards guides, the previous racers, and all that kind of thing. But anyway, it is... Sorry, go on, Ray.
Mr. Beasley as well.
Yeah, I mean,
it was in an incident. Well, I'm checking the messages out, and somebody was taken out by Mr. Beasley, as I say, but
yeah.
I thought he was okay.
Well, from what I saw through the race, I think there was a couple of off-track moments, but wasn't too bad, to be honest. I don't know if I'd say anybody stood out as being able, like any of the new drivers, stood out as perhaps being able to go onto the reserve driver list straight away. We may want to perhaps have a bit more of a look at Acorn with him being Sanu and Mr. Beasley with him being Sanu, and perhaps even English Boy, because obviously there's a lot of drama with English Boy early on there. But sometimes, I mean, mistakes happen. I was actually going to mention it at the time. One of the things that I would like Codemasters to do, right, for F1 2016 is one very, very simple thing, and that is, it's brilliant that they've now got the broadcast views on the game. It is brilliant. It's great. Some of the camera angles may be a bit dodgy, but it is great, right? But what I would like them to do is, for example, I'm the lobby host here and myself and Ray are doing the commentary. What we would like to be able to do is two things. One, not be sat on the grid and have to retire from the session to be able to start watching the race. All right? Because we have to wait a while to let the cars get away before we retire, because if we don't, our cars will just go flying down to the first corners. So we have to wait. Whereas if we don't actually have to sit on the grid, we can have our broadcast cameras showing the side of the grid before the start of the race and watch them all the way down into the first few corners. That, as a broadcast, as a league, is what I would want, because that would be so much better. Or even the opportunity to save the replay. Have a replay and save it, because at least then you could watch the broadcast view of the start and edit into videos. The second thing that I would like is the opportunity for the lobby host to be able to position the drivers on the grid. So let's say, for example, in one of our league races, we do the qualifying session, we start the race, and then there's a mass disconnection, like mass failure of like PSN, right? We all get back on, we all get ready to go. We're then into doing a safety car restart. It would be much better if the lobby host could go, right, you was in this position, 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 we'll have a normal race start, away you go. That would be so much better. But anyway, that's just two things. Anything else you'd like to see, Ray? Other than women with big brassieres?
Oh, that would be good.
It would be good. You should ask Steve to send you the picture he showed me yesterday.
I sent me it.
Did he? All right, fair enough. Anyway, okay, so we'll bring this live stream to an end because it is now 8:30. But we will be live again. Front Row Racing will be live again in about half an hour's time with myself and Ray doing commentary on... I think you're with me, Ray, anyway. Doing commentary on Project Cars, our PCF league, the Project Cars Fridays, which is round 6 in the Formula B at Watkins Glen. An interesting track that F1 cars used to race round. So it'll be 26 laps of Watkins Glen, and we'll be live at around about 9 o'clock, so in about half an hour's time. Anyway, I've been Front Row Racing DP, otherwise known as Dave and quite a few other things, joined by Front Row Racing RI, otherwise known as Raymondo. Say goodbye, Ray.
Goodbye.
Thank you for watching. We've been Front Row Racing, and we'll see you all again soon.